because I just went with a band that I know I like. They're not that big, so you've probably not heard them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went with Streetlight Manifesto, and the album was Somewhere in the Between. It's like I say, it's one of them that, because we've grown up together, large part, in the last 20 years or so. So I know we got largely the same music taste, which did make it a little bit more difficult to try and find something.
Yeah.
But I thought these are probably a little bit outside of what you generally listen to.
Okay.
So that's sort of where I've gone with this. Now, my introduction to them comes from a previously mentioned band that I'd gone to see, Real Big Fish. I'd gone to see them again much later on after my first gig, and Streetlight Manifesto with a support act. And I just remember, like, he obviously left some kind of impression on me. But there was one guy in the audience, and I think we were at Liverpool Academy. And there was one guy in the audience who was that guy. He had his shirt swinging around his head. And he was just going absolutely crazy. Street light, and all this. And we were like, who's here for the support act? Come on, mate. Calm down. But he's like, no, these are the best. These are the best band you're ever going to hear. And I'm like, all right. And like at the time, I thought they were really good. And now I'm kind of like, maybe that guy was right, actually.
Yeah.
I've always put it down like, so been to a lot of gigs. Frank Carter's always an absolutely great gig. I've seen loads of bands that I absolutely love, going to see them live and stuff. Probably one of my top 3 gigs ever, though, was going to go and see Streetlight Manifesto.
Right.
In Manchester, at a place that I don't even think is open anymore, sort of just inside the Northern Quarter. And it was just this little dungy little place. You just went down and like you could almost touch the ceiling kind of thing from where you were standing. There was a bar at the back, and then it was around the corner slightly, and then you went into like the mosh pit area.
Yeah.
And I just remember it just being absolutely just rammed, and just one of the bit like there was the sweat's coming back down off the ceiling. It's one of them that, you know the ones. And it just being absolutely phenomenal. It just was an amazing night. Now, a bit of a backstory on them.
Yeah.
So they're a band. Originally, the lead singer was in another band called Catch-22.
Right.
They still carried on recording. He left and basically went on to form his own band, which became Streetlight Manifesto.
Yeah.
They've only done 5 albums in total. The second album was a cover, an entire like recover of the Catch-22 album that he'd done with them.
Okay.
The third album, which is the one I got you to listen to.
Yeah.
The fourth album was covers of like other sort of smaller indie songs and stuff like that. Right. Not any that you generally know really as well, unless you were kind of really into it. And then the fifth album took forever to come out because they were in a large like legal dispute basically with their record company,
right?
Victory Records, and apparently Victory Records this wasn't the only band that they did that shit to.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So it took forever, and the lead singer also does like acoustic stuff on his own kind of thing, and so it was going to be like a dual release of the album and the lead singer doing an acoustic version of the album, the same album at the same time. But the acoustic one never officially came out because the record company kind of blocked it.
Right.
There's all sorts of issues with it, and eventually the record company sued them. So this was like the last album came out probably like 7 years ago now.
Right.
And that would have been around that time of going to see them. And since then, they've done odd shows in the US and maybe Canada, but they've never come over here since. And it's just been one of them things. It's like one day they're gonna cross the Atlantic, and even if I have to go, like, I wonder how far I'd go. I really do wonder how far I'd go to go and see him again.
Okay.
Because like I say, it's just been one of those things now. I've probably seen them about 3 or 4 times, including that one where I didn't really know who they were. And
so have they become a little bit like your cult hero of a band like Yellow Wolf has for me?
I guess so, yeah.
Just kind of something you always go back to, and it's always there. And
yeah, and it's definitely like possibly down to the fact that, you know, they've only really got 5 albums, but I can literally stick on any of them albums at any point and just listen to it all the way through. And, you know, I'm fine with that. And to the point where I think I may have even used this same album on an episode of our podcast we did quite a while ago, where the three of us from our podcast, Liam, me and Dan, all came up with, I can't remember how many albums we did, but we had to pick so many albums that we could always just listen to all the way through without skipping a track.
Yes, I did listen to it.
Yeah. So, but this album was one of the ones I picked in my section on that. And I remember Liam listening to it at the time going, oh, actually, I really like that. And I thought, and I had that going through my head when I was trying to think of one for you to pick for you.
Okay.
So, yeah, they're classed as a ska punk.
Yeah.
Now, like, so I don't know, we get too deep in music theory on this, but ska music's generally had like 3 distinct types.
Yeah.
You've got your original stuff that came out of Jamaica in like the 60s and a little bit to the 50s. It's kind of almost predates reggae.
Yeah.
Originally. So you've got bands like, you know, Desmond Decker, Toots and the Maytals, Jimmy Cliff, the likes of that. They all came out of that. Now, from there, that sort of came out over, like, obviously, as with immigration and everything else like that, kind of came over here in the 80s.
Yeah.
And you end up kind of with a little bit of a mix then. Because you've got like, that comes the two-tone stuff. The likes of, you've got Madness and Bad Manners and that kind of stuff. You've also got like the Beat and the Selector and the Specials sort of on the more.
Yeah.
To sort of the spectrum of it is kind of, and there were a lot of British bands that came out then. And so you've got that's the second version. And then the third version is you kind of, it fuses a little bit with like your skater punk and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that came out largely out of America. You've got a little bit California, a little bit Florida and that kind of thing. So you've got bands like Real Big Fish, one of the big ones, Less Than Jake, another one, all sorts kind of, you know, it was quite a lot that kind of came out of that as well. Because then all of a sudden it was any Tom, Dick and Harry. Anybody who's got a guitar, pair of funny glasses and a Hawaiian shirt felt like he could be in a ska punk band.
Yeah, it blew up a little bit there, didn't it? And it had not necessarily a ska punk band, but they might do a ska punk song.
Yeah.
But that band might not carry on with it, you know. It went like that, yeah.
That'd be a band who would just go, oh, yeah, pick up that trumpet, right? Give that a go.
Yeah.
But then I think there's a little bit where Streetlight kind of came out of that third wave, as such, people called it. But again, I feel like their sound is just different enough that it kind of makes them unique a little bit. To me, at least. There is a track, I don't think it was on this album I got you to listen to. I think it was on their first album. Let me have a look. No, it's on the second album, which was the recut version.
The microphone just went then. The recut version, yeah.
Yeah, on the recut version of the original Catch-22 album.
Yeah.
And it's called Ride in the Fourth Wave, the track is.
Oh, right, okay.
So that was their sort of knowing joke a little bit that they're trying to be the next version of put ska / punk music. So yeah, that's my introduction and sort of a brief overview of them.
Okay.
What did you think? This is where I'm a little bit nervous now.
Yeah, a little bit nervous now. You do think that way, don't you? Think,
it's just going to be like, oh shit, yeah.
Absolutely awful. No, do you know what? I like you. I played it all the way through, start to finish, first time round. Just the opening 30 seconds, not even that. I thought, this is very Aaron. You couldn't have picked a more you album for me to listen to be honest, I don't think. That opening track, I haven't even written the name of it down, but that opening track I think was a good overview of the album.
Yeah.
I listened to it all the way through, and I thought I liked it, and I could listen to them. I could probably pick out a few of their songs and add it into my playlist. But as I was listening through the album, I thought this could all be a little bit samey in parts.
The
first time round.
That's fair. I mean, I think it's probably their least varied, I think, album.
Right. Okay.
The first album has definitely got a few more. I mean, they don't get that out there, to be fair. It's not, complete Clash style, but it messes with tempo and stuff like that. Whereas I think generally that album that I've got you to listen to there is pretty consistent throughout.
No, I think as I listened to it more, I was picking out the different songs that were kind of touching something within me that I thought, oh, I like that one. Yeah. But then with you saying that the lead singer did a bit of his own stuff, and did you say he did some acoustic stuff? Yeah. So in the songs I've picked out, it's some of that comes through that I'm listening to that I can hear a little bit different.
Okay.
And they were more, they stood out a little bit. So I've got, what did I get down here? I've got 1 Foot on the Gas, 1 Foot in the Grave. I like that one.
That's the one with the intro. It's a little bit slower, isn't it?
Yeah. And then it jumps in and go. I can see where this band in a small venue would be an amazing gig. Because if you've had a few beers and you're up for a good night and you like this music, it's just going off in it in the mosh pit. I could see how it would be a good gig.
Yeah, exactly.
Somewhere in between as well.
Probably my favourite song on there, I think, to be fair.
I like that one. And then more so, sort of today, really, that I was listening to it. Down to Mephisto Cafe.
Yeah.
And 40 Days.
Yeah, I guess 40 Days is probably the one that is the most different on that album, I think.
Yeah. Is that that's the one where it's a bit more of him?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Him singing, isn't it, before it kicks in?
Yeah, that's the one. And it's funny as well because they seem to have some sort of in joke that the track "The Blonde Lead the Blind" is sort of a bit of a joke album, a bit of a joke track for them. And I'm like, I always quite like that song. I thought it's probably not my favorite on the album, but it was good enough.
Yeah.
So it was because one of them, I think I remember seeing that they did a Facebook post or whatever when it was such an anniversary for this album. They're like, right, we're going to play it all the way through. Yes, even that song. And it's like, oh, okay, I quite like that song. You can do it for me. I'd enjoy it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think overall, I liked it. Yeah, there wasn't anything I could, other than saying if I had to listen to it start to finish again, it might be a little bit samey, is probably as bad as I can say about it. I could pick out them songs that I've mentioned. I could probably add them to my playlist, and when they pop on, I wouldn't turn them over.
Yeah.
But then I do find that with some punk kind of bands I've listened to, I find a similar thing. You listen to a whole, even Motorhead, some of their albums, listen to a whole album of them start to finish. It gives you a bit of a headache sometimes.
Yeah.
So you can just kind of jump in and out of it and pick the bits out that you like. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, that's fair. This is one thing I actually noticed as well. I was going to say, because like if you get a punk album, generally you're going to get 10 to 13 tracks. Yeah. They're all going to be about 2.5 minutes long.
Yeah.
You're in and out in half an hour.
Yeah.
That was one thing I saw. I picked that up on the Yellow Wolf album, was that it was 18 tracks, I think, in the end.
I did notice that when I picked it.
Yeah, and I've got to be honest, in that sort of 12 to maybe 13 onwards, that sort of range.
Yeah.
There's a little bit, the mind wanders a little bit. I've kind of
yeah.
And then I thought, I've probably shortchanged myself here. He's given me an album that's an hour and a quarter long, and mine's only 45 minutes.
Yeah, I did think I suppose I went from possibly picking that mixtape with Travis Barker.
Yeah, too short to
and then full length albums, maybe a bit too long.
Even one 8 to 18 tracks long.
But yeah, I liked it.
That's all right then.
I'd heard of them.
Probably through me because I never shut up about them.
Yeah, well, like I said to you, I couldn't name you a song before you suggested this album. So I heard of them, I couldn't tell you a song. Never seen them anywhere, I don't think. Not even, like the Glastonbury or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, live things that come up on YouTube. Nothing, never seen, noticed them.
So I did actually look at some on YouTube and stuff, and there's a few odd videos, but I feel like you've got to like search them out. They're never any like festival videos or anything like that. They're always just their gigs. And like you say, they've done in the last at least 5 or 6 years, they've done odd shows here and there.
Yeah.
In the States, particularly. And I think they've not split up, but they've gone on and got their own things to do and stuff, and it's just getting a little bit more difficult now. So it's every year that gets past, I'm like, well, maybe I'm never going to see him again, which is a bit of a shame. But
sounds like that record label has screwed them a bit as well.
Yes, big time.
Maybe they can't afford to get back out and do gigs over here.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I can only imagine it must cost a lot of money to ship all your stuff over and that.
Getting off topic for a second, have you ever seen that Anvil documentary on Netflix?
I haven't, no. I've been meaning to watch it since it came out and just never got around to it.
Watch that. That's
from my understanding, that's more. It's like a real life version of Spinal Tap, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a bit in it where they travelled over to Europe and they're doing some obscene gig in the middle of Europe with this new manager that they've got that promised them all sorts. And they turn up to the gig and there's no one there. If I can remember rightly, they turn up to the gig and there's no one there. Then they ask the guy for the money back and he's like, oh no, he's trying to get out of it. And the guy just grabs him by the collar and is like, look, you think we've fucking travelled all the way across the world? Give him a fucking money. And he really loses it. It's like a bit of proper documentary where you see like the struggles of it, because they're 20 years out of peak time should have been, you know what I mean? They were
I remember when it came out, people were saying that like it's just this side of like parody almost. Like some of the stuff that goes on in it is just like totally outlandish, but it's all actually real and stuff.
Anything and everything that goes wrong or could go wrong to a band happened to them. They were there just the very nearly men.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole thing. And it's an interesting watch. It's worth watching. But
check it out. It's on Netflix now.
It was on Netflix. I don't know if it's gone off there now, but
fair.
Have a look for it. But that was a similar thing. They got screwed out of albums and record deals and all sorts, and just didn't end up with a pot to piss in at the end of it. And they were just scratching around trying to find promoters in Europe that might just fund them a plane ticket or at least put a gig on if they could get the money together to get over here, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when you were saying about that record label screwing Streetlight Manifesto, it just sounds something similar, and something that obviously years later still gone on in the industry that's just sort of killed a band, really.
Yeah. I think it's one of them things as well, like they have slowly gotten better with it. So like to the point where not long after their last album came out, obviously they went and toured it and everything, and then they just told any of their fans, like, just don't buy our albums because we're not seeing the money. It's going straight to the record company, and we hate them because they're screwing us over, basically.
Yeah.
But then in the last probably like 2 years ago or something, they managed to buy all their, because obviously they were out of the contract by this point, but they managed to buy all the masters from the record company. So they started like reissuing the albums and stuff through their own store and stuff like that since.
Yeah.
So yeah, it feels like things are getting better. It's just
taking its time.
Snail's pace, yeah.
Well, hopefully they manage at least a gig over here or something.
Well, fingers crossed. I got a feeling that if I have to go to like Glasgow or whatever, you're probably not gonna tag along for that one.
You'd be surprised, I might.
Depend if it's the first gig you go to.
Yeah, if it happens next year or like the end of this year,
yeah,
sign me up.
Fair enough.
Get me out the house for a bit.
Yeah.